Imagine if 70 kilometers of a forest disappeared from land in Sydney. Everyone would have known about it and people would have, started doing something about it right away. Here, no one did anything, mainly because no one even knew that it disappeared in the first place.
Operation Crayweed is a restoration project where we're trying to restore underwater forests that used to be in Sydney decades ago, but they went missing. We think they went missing because of sewage pollution. Since those days, which is before the 90s, water quality has improved. We have fixed the sewage problem, but this species of seaweed that makes this underwater forest never came back on its own. So with Operation Crayweed, we have developed a way of bringing those forests back. It's a bit like we're giving nature a helping hand. So we're bringing mom and dad from nearby populations and we're bringing them into a new reef. In the process of taking them out of water and putting them back in again, they get stressed enough that the first thing they do when we put them in their new site is reproduce. Cabbage Tree Bay is a really good example of how the marine environment can be transformed.
We all love Cabbage Tree Bay now because it's had a lot of community involvement. It's really become a place that's, I suppose, showcases what you can do when you can protect a marine area.
I've been living and diving in this area for over 40 years. When I first started coming here, it was not a marine park and the sewage outfalls hadn't been converted to the deep ocean outfalls. The water was always disgusting. There were not very many fish. It was not the wonderful place that it is today.
Cabbage Tree Bay now is almost totally unrecognisable from the way it was 20 years ago before it was a sanctuary. There's been an extraordinary difference over the last 18 years since it became a sanctuary. But it was unusual when it was first a sanctuary for the first 5 years, we didn't really notice any difference. But once it had been a sanctuary, 7 to 8 years, we started seeing the fish populations rise and the number of larger fish increase. And that's been really dramatic in the last 5 years.
Crayweed is a seaweed, and seaweeds in this part of the world are the main habitat in these coastal areas. They are sort of like trees underwater. They form these forests which underpin a bunch of different species of fish, crayfish, abalone, and stuff like that. So they're really, really diverse forests that we really rely on in terms of biodiversity and services that they provide to us. So that's why it's really, really important, because if you are losing these forests, you're losing everything that lives associated with them. All this biodiversity that is fascinating and abundant gets lost with it.
Operation Crayweed started as a pilot experiment. We wanted to know whether water quality was good enough in Sydney to have crayweed, and we found that not only could the crayweed live and survive, but it could reproduce and create self-sustaining populations. We started that back in 2011, and since then we've been planting crayweed in 8 different sites. So Cabbage Tree Bay is our 9th site, and it's a very special site because it's inside a marine reserve. It's probably one of the healthiest sites that we're working in the whole of Sydney.
So when they're around a year old, you can start to sex the crayweed when they're reproductive, and inside their fronds you'll find the sex cells, and this species has boys and girls, so we look for the shape of the sex cells. Essentially there's little parcels of eggs or sperm, and the eggs are round with sperm big long lines, and there's many inside a single parcel. So we're hoping that by keeping them out on the rocks today, they get a little bit stressed, put them back in, and they should be ready to reproduce.
Groups like the Friends of Cabbage Tree Bay or the Bold and Beautiful swimming clubs have been integral to the restoration of crayweed in Manly. So volunteers have been helping us with the actual restoration, and more importantly, they're helping us monitor this forest. So they're the ones that are going to tell us if any of the mats become slightly detached, or if any of the plants go missing, or when the time comes, they will be the ones that will see the crayweeds first, and they can let us know when to come back, when to replant if need be, and how to monitor and follow the progress of this new underwater forest. I think we need to hear more about positive conservation success stories, because they're the ones that can empower people and that can inspire people. Like, we're living in the most highly populated city in the whole of Australia, and yet Cabbage Tree Bay is literally one of the healthiest sites in the whole of New South Wales. So it is possible. You can have people and nature coexisting together, and I think Operation Crayweed and Cabbage Tree Bay Aquatic Reserve are really good examples of that.